So I'm with Drakeford, and very pleased to talk to him. And first of all, I want to ask you whereabouts you are in the world. But first of all, can we just get names sorted? So, so is Drakeford your name? Is it the name of the band? Is it the name you go under for music? Just explain that.
Yes, to all of it. No, so my first name is actually Thomas.
Okay.
But I've never gone by Thomas. So my full name is Thomas Drakeford Lanier, and I've always gone by Drake. I started doing music, goodness, when I was probably 15 or 16, and I was just Drake. I was just playing, my little acoustic songs in coffee shops around my hometown. And then this rapper, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, came out and started using my name.
Yes.
And so I luckily I had a full name to fall back on, but so that's when I started going by Drakeford as an artist. And then my wife and I met and we started doing music together, and we tried for the life of us to find like a really creative artsy band name that incorporated both of us, and we just couldn't think of anything that was like, and so I was like, look, Lucy Jane, we might just have to keep my name as our band name. She was like, yeah, that's probably just is best.
Okay, so when I first heard that you were coming to Leeds and my friend Alan was publicising the concert, and I saw your name, I of course immediately thought of the rap artist, and of course that it's you're dissimilar to him in every respect. Not that I know his music particularly. I now know your music more than his. But I hope it's not been a problem for you that there's a similarity there. Do you think that's confused people?
I would say no, but it's funny that you mentioned that. Our most popular, on the whole, like we're folk singers. We write singer-songwriter, acoustic, folk pop songs. But our most popular song on streaming just happens to be a rap song.
Okay.
And it was a one-time thing, as the spirit leads, we just did it. And that became the thing that is the most streamed on Spotify. So when somebody thinks, or when we meet people and they're like, oh, how do we listen to your stuff? And we send them to Spotify, they hear that song and they assume, oh, Drakeford are rappers.
Yeah.
And we're not, but yeah.
Do you know what? I would call that Suzanne Vega syndrome. Because, as you probably know, she had a song called Tom's Diner. She's a very accomplished acoustic singer-songwriter, and then her Tom's Diner was remixed by a rap artist, and that became her, the song by which she was best known across the world. And people would apparently turn up at her gigs, expecting hip hop and they'd get beautiful acoustic, and that was so anyway. Suzanne Vega syndrome you've got there.
Amazing.
Yeah, sorry. So just tell me about Lucy Jane. So she's you perform with her? Do you all the time?
So it's an interesting chapter of life. We've been touring and performing as a duo for about 10 years, and we've been trying to figure things out ever since we had our first child about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And especially now, Lucy Jane is with child, and we're expecting our second boy.
Oh, great!
And so it's just a complicated dynamic, touring together all the time. We've still been performing. We had a show together yesterday, but traveling and reliably playing as a duo has proven to be difficult with childcare and nannies, and so. For the last little while, I have been playing some shows solo, and we're just kind of taking it as they come and doing what we can.
Okay, I'm loving the birds song, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the birds are really happy out here this morning.
Oh, you're outdoors. Where are you exactly?
So I'm in my back garden in Nashville, Tennessee, right now.
Okay.
I was going to go out to my studio. I have a tiny little shed that I've converted into a studio in my backyard. But I locked the door, and I can't be bothered to go back inside and get the key. So
Okay. So, just to ask you again about Lucy Jane. So she's not from America, not from North America.
She is not. No, we joke about it and tell people she's from North Tennessee, but no, she is. She's a Birmingham gal.
Okay.
Born and raised in Birmingham, and spent a lot of time in Manchester, and then I somehow managed to convince her to come back to the land of country music with me.
Okay. I heard there was a Welsh connection. Is that maybe her family live in Wales? Do they now or something?
No, we deeply love Wales.
Okay.
We used to tour Wales every summer, and we just built such a strong connection with people in South Wales in particular, around the valleys. So for the last 10 years, every year we've done like just a small coffee shop tour around different places, and we love Wales and the Welsh people.
And so while we're talking about Wales, I think you've done some gigs with kind of full gospel choirs when you've been in Wales.
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
Oh goodness! So we have friends in a church in Atlanta, and they're the ones who like began this connection and friendship with some Welsh friends. They started doing this mission trip. We'd send a full gospel choir, like robes and everything.
Yeah.
Full send into these tiny revival churches around South Wales, and we, Lucy being from England, and we had that connection there. They invited us to join. I think the first year was 2015, and that was it. We wore the robes and we sang with the choir, and then halfway through we would bust out a guitar and sing a little folk song about Jesus, and then we would jump back in the choir. And just over the years that it kind of evolved to what it has been for the last few years is just kind of doing little coffee shop gigs alongside the gospel choir. But COVID kind of changed everything for the choir, and they didn't really tour as a big full gospel choir anymore. And
Okay.
That was super fond memories, though.
Nice one. So next week you're going to be up in our part of the world in West Yorkshire. You're playing a gig in Leeds and one in Halifax, I think. No Lucy Jane and no choirs next week.
Unfortunately, no. But I promise I will bring my best stories and and camaraderie from Tennessee.
Okay. So tell us a bit about the show then. So you'll be playing principally your own original material?
I mean, I do have a bunch of songs that are really dear to me that I love, that have proven to be crowd pleasers. If that, the atmosphere, and that's what the show's calling for, then that's what we'll do. But my main thing is I love writing songs, I love singing for people, and I love telling people the stories behind it, and just connecting the human experience with everybody in person.
Okay. Now I've had and I must say really enjoyed. So I listened to Wayward and Home the other day, part 2, and then I was going through your singles this morning, and just having a great time, to be honest, Drakeford.
Thank you so much.
So obviously your Christian faith kind of weaves in and out, doesn't it, of your songs? So can you tell us a bit about that and how that influences your songwriting?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't, back it up, born in the South here in America, which is known as the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
But I didn't really grow up in church. And I had sort of a radical encounter with Jesus when I was about 13 or 14. And ever since that moment, it was back in 2005 or 2006, this finger snap light switch thing happened where music, and I used to write poetry before I was a Christian. Music and poetry and songwriting all kind of converged in an instant. And it just became this really life-giving medium of creativity for me.
Brilliant.
And, not everything that I write is necessarily faith-based or, a song that you would want to play in a church.
Yeah.
But the things that bring me the most joy and satisfaction in doing is wrestling with the ups and downs and the reality of what it means to pursue faith in the modern age. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and then connecting with people on that level that maybe, they've been going through the same thing, but the songs that they're hearing about faith or kind of adjacent to faith don't really address the same things. Kind of leaves these deficits, and I've just found so much fulfillment in the last few years kind of stepping in there and being like, hey, what about these questions? Or like, this is how God's kind of shown up for me in this really crazy way. I don't know. That's sort of where I'm at right now. And I'm kind of loving it, to be honest.
I think that'll go down really well in the Leeds gig next week. I'm not sure who will be at the Halifax gig. Maybe some church folks as well. But my computer's doing some strange things. When you get a box that pops up and it says, "Do you want to make a change to an app that you haven't?" Oh, it's still recording. That's fine. Why does it do that? Anyway. So do you write by yourself? Do you have collaborators? Does Lucy Jane help you?
Yes, Lucy Jane and I are constantly writing together.
Oh, brilliant!
But it's not your typical, like here in Nashville we have like a co-writing culture where 3 or 4 writers will sit together in a room for a 4-hour period of time and just crank out a song. That's very much not what we do. We're just milling about throughout the day. I'll be tweaking the lyrics and I'll say it out to Lucy Jane because we work together pretty much full time, just trying to figure out music and life. And she'll throw out retorts, but it's not us sitting down with a pen and paper and being like, hey, let's do this. We're just kind of living life and throwing ideas back and forth, and that just sort of fine tunes these songs over a few weeks or months, and then they get to a point where we start playing them in shows. But most of what we do is kind of written that way.
Okay, and is Lucy Jane more on the music side and you more the words?
Lucy Jane is a zoom out big picture producer. She's brilliant. So I'll be thinking about arrangements like, I want to go from this chorus into that bridge, and she'll be like, that's a terrible idea. Instead, you should do this, or we have these vocal parts coming here. And then once a song is completed, we just built this little studio in the backyard I mentioned. I'll come out here and I'll lay down the acoustic guitar and just a scratch vocal, and then Lucy sends me out and she just gets in her own little, we call her Lucy Jane because she's Miss Producer. And she'll put her headphones on and she'll track a bunch of vocals and she'll edit a bunch of stuff. So she's much more of the big picture production, arrangement kind of stuff, which is really cool.
Is she trained in music tech or anything like that?
No, Lucy Jane is a really quick learner, and she's a hip hop backing dancer by trade, actually.
Really? Wow. Okay, so other Drake connections here. Okay, I'd quite like to borrow Lucy Jane and have her live on our street. Would that be possible? She sounds like the sort of person I need in my life.
She would love any opportunity to come back to the motherland. Yeah, you just let her know.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to see you next week, am I, Thomas? So I'll have to work out a way of getting a message to her without you knowing. No, anyway.
Unfortunately not. Yeah.
Okay. I'm nearly done with you. You can have your breakfast in a second.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you what a cicada song is.
Thank you for asking that. It's cicadas aren't really a thing in the UK, are they?
Well, not in my world, but that doesn't mean to say they're not. But anyway, possibly not.
So a cicada song is quite an unreal experience, and I've experienced cicadas before. Okay, so a cicada is a bug, and it's about the size of, well, they can be quite large actually, about the size of half of your thumb or your full length of your thumb in some circumstances.
Okay.
And every year cicadas will pop up around the same time, and they sing this song. it's more of a screech. It's more like a eh.
Okay.
But there's usually like hundreds of thousands of them magnified. It just kind of creates this droning buzz saw kind of pad in the background of summer.
Yes.
Every 13 and 17 years, we have this spectacular event in certain parts of the United States where biblical plague amounts of these bugs. I'm talking like, usually it's hundreds of thousands, but on the certain years where these broods come out at the same time, it is trillions and trillions. And the sound is piercing. And it permeates every building, every isolated recording studio. And it's just this droning screech that will drive you crazy, but is kind of just like this. It becomes the backdrop for a season of life, and then they just disappear. They mate for 2 weeks, and then they all die, and thus begins the next 13 to 17 year period of their larva growing underground.
Okay, and when are we next due one?
Well, last year was kind of crazy because both the 13 and the 17-year broods came out in certain parts of the U.S. at the same time.
Okay.
For the first time in like 200 years. I think we're not due for another one for another 13 or 17 years, thankfully. But
oh, no.
It was crazy. I mean, dude, you stepped outside your door, they were in your hair. You took a step, you were crunching 10 of them under your feet. It was nuts, man.
So okay. Saying that, you're not making it sound quite so wonderful as you did the first time you described it. Well, it sounded amazing, and the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. So, would you say it's a positive experience?
For most, it wasn't.
Okay.
Especially not for Lucy Jane, who despises bugs and was terrified at the outside for a couple of weeks.
Oh gosh.
But it was beautiful for us this last time because it was just a new season, and we had kind of been in a period where there was this prolonged spiritual silence, and then out of nowhere, fresh life came bursting into the sails. And there were just so many similarities that we just had to frame the situation in a positive light, because it was just, I saw so much redemption in it, and
Okay, so I'm going to have to go back to the song and have a re-listen with that new information. So thanks for that, Thomas. Final question for you. So I've been listening, and I would encourage our listeners to check out the recent single releases that you can access via your website or via YouTube Music. I suppose other streaming services as well. So kind of individual track releases. Have you got a new album either about to be released, or what's happening with your next album release?
Man, this year has been, we kind of set a lofty goal because we've done 3 full-length albums, which has been amazing. But it is, when you commit to doing an album with a certain amount of songs, it's kind of a daunting process, and you have to crowdfund or have like large sums of money.
Yeah.
We just finished this tiny little studio shed in our backyard, and we thought, you know what, like, the Lord's been so good to us in providing that space and the time to write and press into it that we haven't had in a while, and we're just going to write and record and release as much as we can with a rough goal of a song a month,
right,
for the entire year. So these are all just singles. And if the time were to come and we lumped them together and put an album cover on it, like, we'll probably do that for live shows. Yeah. Just to sell the singles, but I think these are just standalone singles.
Okay, which is fair enough, because that's the streaming way, isn't it? Really, we don't need. I suppose artists, maybe consumers to some extent, don't think of albums so much, but I'm in my mid-60s, and to me, I want 12 tracks with a solid product in my hand, and I want to read the sleeve notes and all that sort of stuff, and that's not going to change the rest of my life. so I've got to make adjustments to some to artists that don't work like that, but I'm pleased that some do, and it's lovely to. Sorry, this is ending up being quite a long last question, isn't it? So you did release a couple of EPs. So just explain. This is honestly my last question. Just explain the title. So Wayward and Home, and there's Volume 1 and Volume 2, and both are kind of mini albums, really, aren't they? And I think they're now a couple of years old. So just explain the Wayward and Home title.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, I'll talk your ear off all morning, man. I'm loving this. So you just keep asking, and I'll keep laughing. Wayward and Home. We were just finishing up our second studio album called The Venture.
Mm-hmm.
And we had actually just listened to the masters, and it had been submitted. It wasn't released yet, but it was coming out. This was around late 2017. And Lucy and I were back in the UK, and our favorite little corner of London is Richmond.
Lovely.
Now popularized by the TV show Ted Lasso. But just a wonderful little town. We were walking around there, and this idea just kind of popped into my mind, like, Wayward and Home is kind of an interesting concept. And Lucy looked at me, and she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I don't know, that combination of words kind of feels like it's got something to it." And we were very much not in the season that Wayward and Home, the album, came from yet, but it was just kind of this little, I don't know, foreshadowing, random thought that popped into my mind. And so I remember mentioning it to Lucy Jane there, and her asking me what it meant, and I was like, I don't know. And then we kind of stored it in the catalog in the back of the brain for a while. And then a couple of years after that, we started slowly, gradually descending into this, what felt like a dark night of the soul, like a long period of just spiritual silence and confusion, where we weren't hearing much from the Lord, and faith was kind of drying up. And I had this little melody that kind of popped into my head, and it became the theme, it became the musical theme for the album. So there's a track called Wayward and Home Theme right in the middle of the two. I think technically it's the first track of the second EP.
Yes.
And I went for a little stroll, and I got lost. It was a tiny village near Dorset, and I was just kind of wandering for hours. I didn't bring my phone with me. I was just lost, and I just started humming this melody that kind of meandered between major and minor, and sounded pretty melancholy, but had moments of hopefulness, and then ended in complete unresolve, like dissonance. And that melody felt so true to where I was. Like, I couldn't have said words that expressed how I was feeling, but that melody did. And it kind of guided the tone for the rest of the songs that we would go on to write specifically for this album. And it's a really, a real wrestle with your faith. God, where are you? What is this all about? What's the purpose of it? Pretty heavy-hitting questions. And the first half is a little bit more melancholy, and the second half hints at a little bit more hope and resolve. But the whole idea of Wayward at Home is it's the space in between good and bad, and resolve and unresolved, and the journey in between those two locations, that juxtaposition. I've just found God to be there.
Yeah.
The same way that he is in good times. And I don't know. So that's where Wayward and Home came from. Thank you for asking about that.
It reminds me of what you were saying earlier about when I was asking you about the themes of your songwriting, and it's asking the questions, and not everything's black and white and clear, and it's a struggle, isn't it? Which to me is what the Psalms, a lot of the Psalms are about, which is an encouragement in a way. So I haven't asked you about anything to do with your government, and I'm not going to, but I write, and I woke in the night and I looked at the BBC News app and made some notes about what was happening in LA, and had a chorus and two verses in a bridge this morning, which all about. It's called Dark Days in LA, actually.
Oh,
but I'm not going to ask you about that because, I mean, I would be really interested to know what you think, but I've detained you for long enough and it's a big subject. And I guess it's awkward, isn't it, for some people in the United States to have to deal with this. Well, I'm kind of asking you now, aren't I? So respond, Thomas, just quickly if you could. I'd be grateful.
Lord help us. Lord help
Yes.
us all.
Oh,
That's
man.
my response, man. It's just a big old mess.
Yeah.
And nothing's working right. And some people feel strongly this way, and some people feel strongly that way. And if you're in the middle ground and you're confused and you're looking for more of a center, like a centered opinion, then you're kind of ostracized and pushed towards one side or another. And if you agree with this side, then you're horrible for this reason. And if you lean towards the other side, then you're horrible for that reason. And it's just a bunch of heartache, and it makes me really sad.
I'm so sorry. It does. I mean, It's had a massive impact in our country, as you probably know, and our media is full of it. And my wife Anne and I are very kind of politically engaged, and we feed on a lot of kind of YouTube stuff, and it's all to do with America, and it's fascinating. I suppose it's fascinating for us because we're not. It's safe for us to muse on it because we're not directly involved. It's not our jobs that are being taken away, or our freedoms that are being denied, or our friends that are being deported. Blah 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 blah. So we can be interested and intrigued, and listen to the commentary without knowing that we're at personal risk. Much more difficult if you're actually living in the communities that are under threat. Anyway, There you go. I'm going to finish by calling you Thomas again. Thomas, thanks ever so much. I've got another thing that's popped up on my screen, which means I can't read how long we've been talking for, but I can
this has
now.
Been a blast. Thank you for chatting with
27
me.
minutes. I'm so grateful. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I can't. I'll put the 27 minutes up on YouTube, and I'll edit something out, which is just about the gig next week. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, I'll come along next week, and I'll say hello, and if we can grab some more chat about songwriting, that would be a good outcome for me. It sounds like it might be for you as well. But sorry, say again.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I'd love to hear what you got started on Dark Days in LA.
Yeah, I'm a very limited musician, but I haven't worked now for a couple of years for health reasons, and I've taken to songwriting and playing at open mics, and found huge satisfaction in that. Actually, huge satisfaction, and I sing original material all the time.
Nice.
Because I've got so much of it. And yesterday I was faced with the choice between finishing the evening with a George Harrison song and playing one of my own about your beloved country, and I plumped for the political and didn't bother with the George Harrison, though I knew people would sing along with the George Harrison and it would have gone down better. But anyway.
You're a troubadour, man. You're just singing it how it is, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you are as well, and it sounds like you're prolific, I guess, and choosing your own stuff, because that's what we have to do, isn't it? God's given us creativity. We have to explore that, which obviously you were doing, and it's a beautiful and wonderful thing. And you've got great talent, and you've got a great sound. I think, Drakeford, I love it. And I love I'm mentally engaged by your words as well. They're interesting, and it's not cliched. So that's really important. And I love Christian artists that get beyond the cliche and get into the darkness a little bit. That's which you do. So I hope you can make a good living out of that. And I'll now shut up, let you go and have your breakfast.
No, thank you, man.
I look forward to seeing you next week. Yeah.
Likewise, my friend. I can't wait to shake your hand and have a chat.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right, brother. You too.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much, Drakeford. Bye-bye.